Hello, I am now live. Good afternoon, Happy New Year, and welcome to a live chat facilitated by me, Beth Upton of Tree Fundraising, all about major donor fundraising. So, the first question I had concerns solicitation statements. Now, this might feel irrelevant to you if you are an in-house salaried fundraiser, but it isn't because if you ever hire someone and you pay them on a freelance basis, so that counts for trust fundraising, major donor fundraising, all types of fundraising, if that person is going to ask for a gift, by law, including freelance major donor fundraisers, they have to make a solicitation statement. Now, I've just been on the fundraising regulator website and it's wildly unhelpful because it says you have to agree what one says. And for more information, look at the Charities Act. My memory could be wrong, but I think a solicitation statement has to say who you are, who you work for, how you are remunerated as a result of the ask. So an example would be, hi, I'm Beth Upton. I work for Tree Fundraising. Today I am fundraising on behalf of the RNLI. And I'm going to be paid a fixed fee for my work. And that has no relation to the answer to your question, would you consider a gift of? Which is horrible and clunky and icky, right? And there are ways around that. And for lots of reasons, I personally don't advocate that. And that is one of them. I personally do not advocate that freelance fundraisers should be making asks. I think that is really clunky and a big barrier to what should be a really nice and natural flowing conversation. But I also think that, freelancers are going to come and go and the relationship has to be solid with the organization. So in-house staff, I think it's quite normal for CEOs to ask, for directors of services to ask, and that fundraiser, whether they're in-house or not, can quite often not do an ask and yet is doing 99.9% of the work because, any of us who've been in major donors for 5 minutes or more know that it's like an iceberg. Everyone talks about the ask, this bit that's floating above the water, the asking, and there's all this mountain of work that goes on underneath to get to hold that ask up and to make it work. So I don't advocate that freelancers do asking, and the solicitation statement is one of those reasons. Unfortunately, the fundraising regulator has chosen not to give more guidance, so it would be a matter of looking in the Charities Act and making sure you've got it right. I can't give you proper advice on it, but that's one thing. So I have got another question, but I want to answer the question. Kathy has been introduced to a wealth advisor. Cool, Kathy. We'd all like to know how you got that introduction and have a very generous anonymous donor as a result. Wow. How do we reach out to more wealth advisors and get on their radar? And is this a thing? So it totally is a thing. I guess I would want to know, how did you get in with the first one? That's my question, Kathy. So getting in with people who can open their networks, wealth advisors being one of those types of people, is basically the exact same job as getting in and cultivating people. So whether you're asking them to open their networks, asking them to promote you to their client base, asking them for a gift directly, you're still making an ask. And one of the things you have to do is you have to identify why someone is supporting you. So let's use Kathy's example. So a wealth advisor has come to their organization randomly and said that they want to promote that organization, whatever it is, to the client base. And as a result, one of the wealth advisor's clients is now an anonymous donor to the charity. So there are two networks at play. You have the wealth advisor's clients, and we already know that the wealth advisor is minded to think of this organization, but a conversation and cultivation that sounds like, is there anything more I can give you? Do you have other clients who are of interest? What can we do to support you in engaging other clients in our work? What's going well for you in this relationship? What's not going well? Proving that you're worthy of having a relationship with by servicing donor one well, and then encouraging that person to think of you for other donors, other clients of theirs. But they also sit in a network of other wealth advisors. We're all fundraisers, we all hang out together. Wealth advisors are no different. Everyone who's in the same job type ends up knowing other people in the same job type. You know them on LinkedIn, you know them through networking, through friends, ex-employers, ex-colleagues, that kind of thing. You end up hanging out in the same circles. So cultivating your one person who's come to you randomly and building a strong enough relationship with them personally that they feel able to open their address book to their colleagues to promote you to other wealth advisors is really useful. So let's say you're not lucky with that, Kathy, and you don't have a wealth advisor literally knock on your door going, "Hello, I've got a donor who'd like to give to you," which obviously doesn't happen to many of us. Wealth advisors will all be on LinkedIn. So building a LinkedIn network is something that sounds super easy. And Sarah, this answers your other question about where on earth do I start in part. And I will go on to other ideas where you start as well. But building a LinkedIn network feels like a really easy thing to say. And actually, it takes years to build a really good network. So I have been personally working on my network now for years. I dedicate work time to it almost every day. I find people to follow. I find people to connect with. I put on good content. I engage people. And I don't know if you know how LinkedIn works, but you can't just connect with a stranger. So say you know the name of a wealth advisor at, say, UBS Wealth Management, and you really want to connect with them, and you're over here and your third plus degree related to them on LinkedIn, you cannot just connect that person. LinkedIn is about networks and about connections. And LinkedIn has its flaws, and LinkedIn is clunky. But one of the things I like about LinkedIn is you can only those who are near to you. So when you start out and you don't know anyone on LinkedIn, new profile, it's really hard, but you build it. And so what you want to do is you want to connect to the people who are second. So first degree contacts are the people you're connected with. Second are the ones who you have a mutual connection. Third are the ones who are out from there who don't have anything mutual. And you want to just build that over time. So you want to search for job titles, search for wealth advisor, search for philanthropy advisor, search for those people, try and connect with them, but it's not definitely try and follow them. So that's something you can do, and you can look at their content without having a connection directly with them. If they're putting great content out there that is relevant to wealth advice and philanthropy advice stuff, and start engaging with that content, get known as someone who knows what they're talking about in this field and can add value. This is not about finding them on LinkedIn and then going, "Please, can I ask your clients for money?" This is about building a genuine relationship, and you don't do that by jumping to their threads and going, "Yeah, but why aren't you advising people to give to my charity?" And that might sound silly to us because we are seasoned fundraisers, even if we're new to major donor fundraising. But I have seen that done, and it is just not going to work, right? If people are busy, they're not going to take that approach kindly. So I definitely recommend going through those. The other thing, this sort of answers Kathy's question about where would you find more of them if you didn't have any, but also Sarah asked the question of where do you start if you're a charity. LinkedIn is also great for looking for those philanthropists. You know, they are out there and they're looking. And when your LinkedIn profile, you can say what you're interested in. And so you're looking for all of those clues. You're looking for people with an interest in things to do with your cause, things that are adjacent to your cause. So if your disability charity that focuses on sporting opportunities for people with disabilities, looking at people who have sporting interests in general, potentially the same sports that you engage in your charity, as well as people with disabilities. So we're looking for the kind of tangential stuff as well as the direct stuff. So those are my recommendations in terms of LinkedIn, is finding all the kind of job titles and things and starting to build relationships. There are organizations you can connect to as well, sort of philanthropy advice organizations. New Philanthropy Capital is one that springs to mind. The Beacon Collaborative springs to mind. Obviously, you've got all the wealth management companies, so Barclays Wealth, UBS Wealth Management, Coots Wealth Management, and finding those. So the organization is sometimes going to be sharing content on LinkedIn as well as the individuals who work there. So going through that. If you find a company such as, let's say, Barclays Wealth Management is on LinkedIn as a company, you can go to the company profile, you can look at people, and you can go through all of the employees. They are past and present employees, so you need to check you're looking for the current ones, and you can search and look for job titles of people who are currently employed at Barclays in the wealth management, and obviously just Barclays, all of them, that kind of thing. And you can go through all of those routes. I wouldn't negate the trust and foundations routes for that, because advisors in trust and foundations can sometimes also be advisors for philanthropy as well. And really just put your time in. It's like everything in major donor fundraising. Nothing comes quick and nothing comes easy. And I'm sure my colleagues in individual giving and legacies and community and events and everything else, and I know it's true for trusts and corporate, will say, it comes easy for us either. But there is no easy win. There is no shortcut here. And if you don't have an existing network of donors, and if you don't have a single donor to start with, and if you don't have a database of donors at all, then LinkedIn, I think, is the great democratizing opportunity for charities, small and large, because everyone's on there, but eventually everyone is going to want a job. So that's my advice there. If anyone has any questions, do pop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them, but I'm going to carry on as I haven't got any new questions yet, answering the big question of the day, which is like, where do we start if we haven't got anyone? So the first place you should start is with your existing database of supporters. It would be unusual to be a brand new charity and to decide that major donor fundraising is where you're going to go cold from scratch with no lead as your first income stream. So if you don't yet have an individual giving program, get one. But again, that is the most flippant thing, and it's very easy to say. But that is, if you look at all the large organizations that you might feel jealous of and feel they've got an easy ride, if you're not one of them, and they would say, don't feel jealous, they don't have an easy ride. Without exception, they all have individual giving programs. So they have this constant, certain, regular gift of income that comes through. And also a pool of donors from whom they can call on to do events, from whom they can call on to do community, from whom they can weed out potential major donors. And that's what I'm going to suggest. Have a database. It can be a database of givers. It can be a database of newsletter recipients, anything like that. Start thinking about acquiring a bit information about them, just an email address. Include a request for an ask in your newsletter so that you can start getting some of that information going and build a database. Now, once you have a database, the easiest way, although it costs money, is to pay a specialist agency such as Prospecting for Gold to do what they would call a wealth screening. Your privacy policy needs to be in place. They can support you with that. And there are experts out there who can help you getting your right privacy policy in place. But assuming your privacy policy allows you to do it, you can do what they call a wealth screen. They go and they screen your database against their database of wealthy people, and they tell you how many people you have on the database at different levels. Now, the screen is free, but acquisition of the answers to who are those people then costs money. So you can do the screening for free. And if you don't find anyone, you haven't lost anything. But if you then want to move it forward, you do have to pay Prospecting for Gold for that information. You can do a version of it yourself. Pull your data from your database into a spreadsheet and sort it. So take all of your donors for the last few years and sort them by recency, frequency, and cumulative giving. So if you've got someone who's giving £10, £15 a month, over the course of 3 years, that looks like quite a chunky sum of money, right? And if they're potentially giving other gifts as well, people like that do tend to, then, you can start eyeing up people who are giving at the top end. So they're giving recently, they're giving frequently, they're giving high levels. That can be some clues. There are other clues you can look for in your database. And again, it's really important that privacy policy says that you're allowed to collect this data and that you collect it to be able to use it for clues. So if you are processing payments, you can look at sort codes of direct debits. I know some charities don't let you do this anymore, but you can look, in the olden days, you looked at a check. Who was a check from? What bank did they bank with? But you can look at sort codes as well for the same thing. And you're looking for private banks. So say Core Bank, Coots Bank, anyway, the private banks, you're looking for those. You can Google the names of them. You have to have a certain amount of wealth to be able to bank with them. So that is an indicator of someone who's wealthy. There are certain postcodes in the UK that are super wealthy. If you're a local charity, you will know what the wealthy postcodes and street names are. I spoke to someone yesterday and she said her drive into her very ordinary hospice is kind of like a millionaire's row of big mansion after big mansion after big mansion. Like she knows where the wealth is in her local area. And that will be the same for you. So you can search for people with postcodes so you can tell that they're addresses. Obviously, there are certain types of address. So roads and cul-de-sacs and things don't tend to flag wealth. But, if people live in castles and farms and things like that, that can indicate a bit of wealth. Titles, lords, ladies, sirs, they tend to be wealthy. You tend to not get poor ones of those. There are lots of clues you can look for in your database of people who might be wealthy, who might be already on the radar supporting your charity. And my biggest advice is to always start with you, because it is a long haul. And if you start with someone you've already got that proximity to them, that closeness. They're already known to your organisation. Your organisation is already known to them. So one of your big helpers is dealt with. You're allowed to contact them, obviously, unless they've completely opted out. They'll have you probably have legitimate interest and you pick up the phone and say, thank you for your gift. I'd love to hear more about why you support our organisation. Start off really beautifully and gently in a really positive relationship. Definitely start with those people. The second part of start with who you know, and something I said to Kathy is she's got her wealth advisor, is then start once you've got great relationships with these people who are supporting you. Trustees and senior volunteers also count as supporters. Find out if they know anyone. So what are their circles like? So start doing some network mapping and asking them who you know, who they could open their address books to, and would they consider making introductions? They're going, oh, I don't want to ask my friends. It's absolutely fine. It isn't about this. This is a great moment for having a cultivation of empathy. If you could just invite that person here to speak, hear the chief exec speak about this really cool thing, we can take the relationship. You're doing the introduction, we're doing the fundraising because we're at it. And I really recommend that as well. I think I've covered it. I mean, if anyone else has got any top tips on where to go for donors when you haven't got tons of cash and you haven't got a massive database, do feel free to apply and write comments on the chat. And has anyone got any other questions? Well, thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that you like the advice. Thank you.